Hang on. Oh, cool. Okay. Hang on, let me announce it. Hi everyone, and welcome to our panel talk organized by TAGAP. This panel talk is done by Lara, who's gonna do a stay on top the solo game dev. Lara, please continue.
Hi everyone, my name is Lara. I'm a solo game developer, and let me just say a few words about myself. I've been a solo game developer for a long time. I released my first game in 2014. It was called Cyberflow. It was a really small mobile game, and it flopped horribly. It was a total failure. After that, I also released an app that was not a game, just a web app that was somewhat successful. Not a huge success by any measure, but it made me a little bit of money. It has a dedicated user base, so I still consider it a bit of a success. And now I'm working on a bigger project called Vantra City that you'll see here. And I've managed to build a pretty active community for it. And of course, it's still in development, so I don't know if it will be a success or not, but I hope it will because it's looking pretty promising already. And if anybody from my community is watching, hey guys, I love you all. So let me tell you a little bit about my experience and what worked for me and what didn't work. So if you're a developer or you want to be a developer, maybe you can relate. Let me start by what it takes to actually get started with game development. If you are someone who already considers becoming a game developer, and this is what it takes to actually start working on it and finish your projects. First of all, the thing you have to do is have the right mindset and the right attitude. This is extremely important, and none of those things are something you're born with. It is all something you can train and cultivate in yourself, and these are definitely things that I've had to cultivate in myself. First of all, the love of problem solving is what you're gonna need. It is the mindset of seeing every problem and every challenge as an opportunity to overcome them, rather than an obstacle or something negative. It is something you can definitely train in yourself, and it helps enormously because even if the problem is unexpected, something that drops out of the blue on you, this attitude still helps you to overcome it. No matter what comes your way, you're ready for it. And this brings me to the next point. Have a delusional can-do attitude. Have this borderline delusional belief that you can solve every problem, that you not only enjoy solving problems, but that you are capable of solving any problem. Of course, this is not true. We're not all capable of solving every problem, but you only find out your limits when you try. So that is definitely something that helped for me. For example, there are problems I've tackled that I had no chance of actually solving, but in the process of trying to solve them, I've discovered something and learned something about myself. For example, at some point I decided that I'm a programmer, but at some point I decided that I can just make a completely realistic, fully rigged character on my own from scratch. And I tried to do that. And of course it didn't work because that takes years of training that I don't have. And my character came out looking really goofy, but in the process of trying, I've discovered some things that I can do, that even though I'm not an animator, not a modeler, not an artist, I can still do some little things like adjusting a rig that already exists, or maybe like modifying the character that already exists, that I wouldn't know how to do if I hadn't actually tried to make one from scratch. So that brings me to the next point, is that what you have to do is be able to move on from failure and embarrassment. This is extremely important, and this is actually what stops a lot of creative people from achieving their dreams. And this thing doesn't come naturally to anyone, I think. We're all scared of failure. We all hate embarrassing ourselves. But if you just tell yourself from the start that if I try a lot of things if I try a lot of creative things and I put myself out there, I put my work out there for public scrutiny, then I will fail eventually. And I will embarrass myself at some point. It's just inevitable. And you prepare yourself from the get-go that this is what's going to happen. And when that happens, you just learn your lessons, move on, and try again. You don't let that discourage you. You don't overthink it. You don't dwell on it. You just try again. And that brings me to the last point that was actually the hardest thing for me, personally. It is knowing when to ask for help and advice. Because I grew up in a culture where it was embarrassing to ask for help, when you were seen as weak if you ask for help. You're supposed to figure out everything on your own, and if you don't, you're just a failure. But I had to train myself to actually reach out to people who are more experienced than me, who are experienced in different areas than me, to help me and to advise me. And that was actually the crucial mistake I made with my first project that failed. I thought I could do everything on my own because I had the technical skills. But I had no idea that there was a lot more work involved, especially in terms of marketing, market research, playtesting, community building. I had no idea about any of those things. And I thought I didn't need to because I can build a game and I can put it out there and the players will just come and discover it on their own. Well, that didn't work, to no surprise. But yeah, and now I do reach out for help when I need it. And that has made all the difference for my current projects. And now let's talk a little bit about burnout. Because for me personally, I have no issue having a lot of work to do. But I did experience burnout several times, many times. But every single time I experienced it, it was not because I just had a lot of work to do or got overwhelmed. It was because I knew deep down that the work I was doing was either not the right kind of work or I wasn't doing it in the right way. This is why, to avoid burnout, in my opinion, this is my experience, it is important to, first of all, listen to your intuition. When a task or an entire project feels like a drag and you feel really demotivated, you have to listen to that feeling, not just dismiss it as laziness or lack of willpower, which is very tempting to do, but actually listen to it and dig a little deeper of why you feel that way. And it also helps to ask other people, your playtesters, your peers, or someone else who's not personally invested, someone you don't know personally, preferably, because the people you know personally will just tell you everything is great, you're doing a great job. But that's not what you need. What you need is for someone to tell you what you're doing wrong and where you're going wrong, honestly. And you have to listen to that honestly. And usually it turns out to be one of two things. Either you find out that you're working in the wrong way, you have the wrong approach to the task, and that usually means the task is too daunting. You don't feel like doing it because you fear failure, that if you try on that task, there's a good chance that you will fail because it's too complicated or outside your expertise. And then you really don't feel like doing it. In that case, what helps is changing the way you work, changing your approach to the task, splitting it into smaller tasks, or maybe reaching out to someone who has expertise with that task, or maybe even outsourcing part of it to someone else, so that you have less to do, and that way you can actually tackle it. But there's also a second thing that might happen, which is your gut is telling you, and other people will tell you, that what you're trying to do is just not worth doing. So you might just need to give up on that. And this is very hard to do, especially when you've invested a lot of time, a lot of work into this task or an entire project. I have so many unfinished side projects. It's crazy. But you just have to give up sometimes. And the next part is community, because I've talked about motivation, I've talked about burnout, and a big part of motivation for me is having an active community. I managed to build a community that I'm quite proud of. It's not huge by any means, but it's very active, it's very dedicated. I have about 18,000 subs on YouTube, and I have over 460 something users on Discord who are very active, very engaged. And this is a big part for my personal motivation, because when I know that every little step I make on my project, I can share it with my community and they're going to be excited to see it, it really keeps me motivated to work harder. So what can we do to build a strong community as developers? First of all, we got to start early. And this is not about Discord, by the way. This is about other social media. I will talk about Discord separately. But for other social media, we got to start early. We got to start showing our progress whenever we have something to show. And for that, it might even be worth it to change your workflow, change the order in which you make things, because as a programmer, it sometimes gets tempting to just focus on building systems and like use placeholders and blockouts for all the graphics and just focus on building systems and gameplay and mechanics. But you gotta keep in mind this aspect that you gotta show something. So it might be worth taking a break from all those systems and replace those placeholders with some decent looking graphics. Maybe not final graphics, maybe other placeholders, but ones that actually look good, that you can show to people. So once you have that, I would advise to try all of the social media platforms, all of them. It costs nothing, just your time. I've tried all of them. Well, all the ones I could think about, at least. Probably not all of them. But you really got to try all of them, because you never know which one will work best for your project. It's very individual. Depends on the developer, depends on the project, depends on the graphics, style, genre. But once you've tried all of them for at least a little bit, you get a sense of which ones work and which ones don't. And then you can focus on the ones that work. For me personally, it's YouTube mostly, Reddit, and yeah, that's about it. YouTube and Reddit are my two biggest ones. But for other developers, I heard TikTok's becoming viral, getting millions of views, or Instagram Reels, or even some, I don't know, technical blogs where they go viral for their technical ability. Either way, you won't know until you try. So once you have, only then, once you have a few hundred dedicated fans at least on those platforms, on those passive platforms, then you can start with active platforms like Discord. And once you start Discord, you gotta have a playable build, because Discord relies, unlike all those other social media that I mentioned, Discord relies on player activity, on people actively engaging with your content, not just looking at whatever you put there. So in order for people to actively engage, you have to give them something to engage with. You have to have a playable build. Playtest is perfect. A demo is even better. But even a prototype, an early prototype, is something that could work. So once you have that, a playable build and a few hundred dedicated followers, you can make sure that your Discord actually stays active. Once you have that channel of people coming into your Discord, you have to also hold them there. And for that, you as the developer, as the leader, you set the tone and the vibe. And this is extremely important. It is important for you to stay positive and engaging, because I can't count how many Discords I've joined. I joined all the Discords. I joined the Discords for projects I'm interested in, projects I'm mildly interested in, and I often end up leaving most of them because either the vibe is off, or I see that the developer is not engaging, or I see that it's just dead. So if you have that situation when your Discord is not appealing, and no matter how many people join, they will just end up leaving. So you gotta be very mindful of the vibe you create. And it becomes tempting sometimes when you have an active community to like treat them as your buddies, to vent to them or talk politics, and you can't do that. You can, it's your server, you can do whatever you want, but you shouldn't, because it throws off the vibe. You gotta stay positive, you gotta stay on topic. And on that note, you also gotta eliminate troublemakers. Most troublemakers in your community will be spammers who pretend to like your project and maybe even engage for a little bit, but then they start DMing your users, and you gotta catch that really early, because one person who throws off the vibe will chase away tens or even hundreds of your users. So if somebody is spammy or argumentative, you gotta get rid of them early. Sounds harsh, but it's the truth. You gotta be mindful of the vibe and the atmosphere in your community. So this is how I manage my community, basically. And now the last part is how to balance it all. How to balance working on the game, marketing for the game, and managing the community for the game as a solo developer. This is something that will probably be frustrating for you guys, because I'm going to give a very generic advice here, is that know yourself and do what works for you, because it's very individual. I've talked to a lot of developers, and it just varies a lot from person to person what they find the best way for them is. Because for a lot of developers, for example, they like to keep a schedule, they like to track all their tasks, they like to schedule everything, and basically have this whole calendar of everyday tasks that they will do, meetings, whatever. For me personally, this doesn't work at all. I get really demotivated by the monotony and predictability of this approach. So I like to keep my workflow kind of spontaneous and chaotic, because it's just more fun for me. And keeping it fun for yourself is probably the most important thing, because that's your motivation. That's where your motivation is. So I do have a list of tasks, of course, and I do track some things, but I still try to keep enough space in my lists for just a little bit of playfulness and randomness. And you gotta find your own rhythm for managing it all. Because for me, for example, the rhythm is that I carve out from this huge project that I'm working on, I carve out a chunk of work that takes about 2 weeks to complete. And I work on that. It may be a feature, or it may be just a small part of a feature if it's a huge feature. But once I accomplish it, of course, during the work, I also post some updates on social media, wherever it makes sense. When it's fun, I encounter something fun, I post it, why not? And once I'm finished with this little chunk of work that I've carved for myself, I make a YouTube video about it, then I engage with the comments and engage with my community about it for a few days maybe, and then I carve out the next chunk. This is why I usually release 2 videos per month, although sometimes the chunks are smaller than that, although not very often. Usually they're larger than that, then I can't keep up with 2 videos a month, but that's okay. This is about how I work. It's not a schedule, it's a rhythm. And the last thing is to, of course, enjoy activities outside of game development, have a rich, interesting life that you can then use to fuel your creativity and to fuel your motivation. For me personally, it's very intertwined. My life experiences always reflect in my work in some way. So that's basically how I do it. And that's my presentation on my experience. Thank you all for listening. This is a link to my demo if you haven't seen it yet. You can check it out. So that's about it. Thank you. Do we have questions?
Yeah, but you'll have to repeat them.
Yeah, if you have any questions.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question. You
Yeah.
said you don't have like a big schedule and you sort of break things into chunks. How do you determine like what's a chunk? Like what's a feature and when it is too big and it has to be split into smaller chunks?
Okay, the question is that how do I determine how do I determine what's a chunk of work and how do I split my big tasks into smaller tasks? Good question. I don't know. It just kind of naturally, like I said, it's a rhythm that is just in my head and it naturally comes to me. Like if I have a feature that is too large, if it's too small, then I kind of unite it with other small features. Like, okay, these 2 weeks I'm focused on bug fixing. And I have this list of bugs that should amount to about 2 weeks of work. And if I have a bigger feature, then I'll say I'll have to split it anyway because it's just too big to tackle as a whole. So I will split it into parts. That's about it.
And do you also like prioritize chunks based on what the community wants you to do?
Oh, the question is whether I prioritize the chunks on what the community wants me to do. No, I don't care what they think. Sorry, guys. But I just work on what I feel like working at the moment. I have a broader schedule. It's actually on my website. There's like a roadmap of the big picture, the big features I'm working on. And I have a kind of a smaller schedule of what each feature needs to, the steps that I have to take to complete each of those big features. And that's what I'm working on. I rarely prioritize anything my community likes. I mean, only small things. Yeah, if my community wants like a small thing, small feature, a small fix, then I will prioritize it. But for the big features, I have a roadmap and I have a mental map of what each of my roadmap chunks should entail. And that's what I do. Any other questions?
I have tons, but if someone else has other questions.
I maybe have a question.
Yeah.
So for me, the hardest things are like bureaucracy or communication, and I know I have to do these things, but I really don't want to. But then I neither work on them nor do the actual fun parts. And I have not found a good solution for that. Do you have any idea or trick or anything?
Okay, the question is about how there are some tasks that you don't want to do sometimes, like bureaucracy or communication, and then you end up not doing those tasks and also procrastinating on everything else. Yeah, I forgot to mention that there are tasks sometimes that you just don't want to do but they have to be done. So my framework of saying just give up on a task you don't want to do is not going to work because you can't give up on them. You have to do them. For those you just really have to have discipline and force yourself. Sorry, there's no better answer. Any other questions?
If you, in a presentation, you said that you need to know when to give up.
Yeah.
When you work so much on one project that you really, really want to make, it's a passion project, let's say, how do you give up?
Okay, the question is how do you give up on a passion project that you've invested so much into? Well, first of all, if you take continuous feedback for your project, like I would advise to do, and like I didn't do with my first project, that was a big mistake. If you take continuous feedback, then you probably won't get too deep into that project, unless you're making it completely for yourself. That is this stuff does not apply. When you're making just a passion project for yourself or your friends, then go ahead, just do whatever you want. But if you're making something that you plan to sell to other people, to make a living from, then you have to take feedback early on so that you kind of have an idea early whether your project is going to work or not. But yeah, if the feedback is not good, you have to give up. Unless it's almost finished, then you might as well just finish it. But yeah, early feedback will help.
How early? My question is more like, how much do I need, for example, to do so that I can show to others? Because I presume there is like a minimum and a maximum, you know, like how much or how little you must have.
Yeah, I've touched on it. Yeah, the question is how little or how much you have to show your work to the other people. I've had a slide on that, and yeah, as soon as you have something that looks good, you have to show it. A tiny prototype, like a little bit of gameplay, a part of a level, or even if you're working on a systems-based game like I am, like I can't carve out a chunk of this. I can't, because it's all procedurally generated. So I generate the whole city or none of it. I can't generate a small chunk, because generating a small piece is as much work as generating the whole thing. But yeah, as soon as you have even like the very basic idea of what your game is going to be like, a very basic level with some graphics that look somewhat good to you, you gotta show it. And you gotta take the criticism, because sometimes ego gets in the way and you're like, oh, they just don't get it. It's gonna be better when it's finished. No. Anyone else?
Do you have a strategy for deciding when feedback is worth acting upon, or just...
Okay, do I have a strategy for when the feedback is worth acting upon? Well, first of all, I think all feedback is useful, even if it's like completely out of whack, even if it's completely crazy, something very mean and very pointless. I also try to ask myself, what prompted this person to give me this feedback? Because usually if someone is, the worst kind of feedback is when you get no feedback. But when you get something, you can kind of think about it. Even if the person was very angry and very unfair, you can ask yourself, what prompted them to say these things? Like, did they expect something else? Is there something I made them expect that they didn't quite get? Or is this the wrong audience? That maybe I'm talking to the wrong people somehow? Usually, these kind of questions really help. And if the feedback is constructive, and if there's a lot of it, because, like, for example, for my playtest, first playtest, I had a lot of feedback. I had like 100 messages, and everybody was talking about a different thing. So I got a little bit overwhelmed, but I still tried to find common patterns in it and see what to prioritize by how many people mentioned it, etc. So yeah, all feedback is good feedback, in my opinion. Yeah.
How important is optimization for you, and how much time do you usually spend on it?
How important is optimization for me, and how much time I spend on it? Good question. For my project, it's extremely important because the project is huge. It's running on Unreal Engine, which is heavy by itself. And I'm also running it in VR, so I spent a lot of time on optimization. And it's still not great. It's still not perfect. I'm not happy with it. So I'm trying to squeeze every little bit of performance out of it, but it's always a battle. So basically for me, for project in development, after every major feature that I complete, I have like this round of optimization where I focus only on optimization for like a few weeks or even months. Before my demo, I spent a lot of time just making it run decently, and still not satisfied, but it's extremely important.
Off topic, it runs on Steam Deck.
Yes, it runs on Steam Deck.
Off topic is optimization. You mentioned you had like hundreds of side projects. How do you decide which one of them is worth investing some polish so you can show to a broader audience?
Oh, very easy. I show it to people and I see the reaction, and it's night and day. Oh yeah, I forgot to repeat the question so our viewers can tell. They ask me if I have a lot of side projects, how do I decide which ones to focus on and which ones to drop? I show them to people, and the reaction is night and day. You'll know it. If you haven't had a successful project, then you probably won't know it, and you'll be tempted to convince yourself that, oh, these two people that said it looks nice, maybe two people said it looks nice, so maybe it's worth pursuing, and I really like it. But no, when the project is good, you will see it. You will see people asking you to work on it. They won't just say it looks nice. They'll be like, "Shut up and take my money." Literally. I've experienced it with my web app, and I experienced it with this project, but I have not experienced it with my first game, which failed. So yeah, that's what's going to happen.
So does that mean that you put out every draft you made to ask for feedback?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe there's some small side projects that I just make for myself, then those I don't. But anything I plan eventually to put somewhere in public, anything like that, I put on Reddit. Reddit is great. It gives you very honest feedback. They're going to be very honest. They won't sugarcoat it. So, yeah, I put it on Reddit and see the reactions, basically. Yeah?
Have you experienced feature creep?
Have I experienced feature creep? Yes, all the time.
How do you deal with it?
I just add the features. I don't know, my project is not released yet, so well, we'll see if it ever gets released, or is it going to be stuck in feature creep. I hope not, but it's definitely very tempting to keep adding stuff.
You haven't said how long have you been working?
Oh yeah, I've been working on this project for over 3 years now. I think closer to 4 now, but not all full time. I had a job, and this was my side project, and then I quit my job to work on it full time. But yeah, over 3 years now. And
Shows your perseverance.
and it's still about 1.5 to 2 years away from release, so it's still quite a bit of work. Any other questions?
All right. I guess that's it.
Okay, I guess that's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So.